Hello and welcome to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up for the week ending October 11, 2024. This is your exclusive source for high-level analysis of the world's most pressing intelligence, national security, and foreign interference developments. In today's episode, Neil Bisson, a retired intelligence officer with over 25 years of intelligence and law enforcement experience, will take you into the most significant stories shaping global security. Just some of the stories Neil is examining today include Russia's covert operations aimed at creating chaos across Europe, Irish politicians accused of working as Russian spies, and the recent testimony from Canada's National Security Advisor denying politicians are traitors, despite being labelled as witting participants in foreign interference. By diving into national security and international intelligence stories, Neil brings you insights and analysis that you won't find anywhere else, so you don't miss any aspect of the world of intelligence and espionage. Remember to subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, and ask your smart speaker to play Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. If you enjoy staying ahead of the curve with today's briefing, please hit the like button, share it, and leave a rating or a comment. Support the show at buymecoffee.com/kicking or go to buzzsprout.com/2336717.com to help power the expert analysis provided here. Now let's begin.
Hello, and welcome back to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. As always, it's been a busy week for spies, agents, and the governments they work for. That brings us to our first story, where we're diving into a statement from UK Security Service Director General Ken McCallum, who warned that Russia's GRU military intelligence service is on a mission to cause mayhem across Britain and Europe. The GRU is not alone in this. It seems the resurgent terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State are also back in the picture. The article we'll be discussing today comes from Reuters, titled Russia's GRU seeking to cause mayhem in Britain and Europe, UK spy chief says. In his recent speech, McCallum described how Russia's GRU is increasingly turning to sabotage, arson, and other subversive tactics following the expulsion of more than 750 Russian diplomats from Europe. According to MI5, these actions are being carried out through proxies, people who are paid to carry out Russia's dirty work. What we're seeing here is Russia's shift to unconventional methods after being forced to downsize its formal presence across Europe. The use of criminals and drug traffickers to destabilize regions reflects a broader strategy to keep Russia's influence strong while operating in the shadows. Intelligence services across Europe will have to deal with this constant background noise of low-level yet persistent interference, much like a game of whack-a-mole. McCallum also pointed out that the threat from resurgent terrorist organizations, particularly Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, is also on the rise. The March attack on a Moscow concert hall, attributed to the Islamic State, highlights how these groups are resuming their efforts to export terror across borders. This isn't the first time we've seen the GRU operations cause chaos in Europe. If we think back to the 2018 Salisbury poisoning of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal in the UK, which I discussed last week, this was also the GRU's handiwork. Today, however, their tactics seem to be more dispersed, using a variety of local actors to carry out their plans. Similarly, Islamic State resurgence remains troubling. As global conflicts continue to shift, these terrorist organizations are quick to take advantage of the instability. McCallum's mention of the conflict in the Middle East potentially triggering terrorist action in the UK is reminiscent of similar scenarios we've seen in the past, such as the aftermath of wars in Iraq and Syria. McCallum's speech makes it clear that state actors like Russia and Iran are rapidly adapting their tactics. The GRU's increased reliance on proxies, criminals, and drug traffickers is particularly concerning for intelligence agencies, as it makes it harder to track and prevent their operations. His warning about Iran is equally alarming. Since January 2022, MI5 and UK police have stopped 20 Iran-backed plots. The scale of these threats is unprecedented. Iran's efforts to target dissidents on British soil, such as the assassination plots against journalists critical to the Iranian regime, demonstrate that foreign interference doesn't just stop at politics, but extends into direct threats against citizens. From my professional perspective, these developments reflect a shifting background in intelligence operations. Instead of a large-scale military confrontation, we're seeing an uptick in hybrid warfare. where state and non-state actors use all available tools to undermine their enemies. Russia's GRU is actively working to generate instability across Britain and Europe, using proxies to conduct sabotage and other nefarious activities. Meanwhile, the resurgence of an Al-Qaeda and Islamic State presents a renewed threat of terrorism, both abroad and potentially within the UK. As we move forward, intelligence agencies will have their hands full combating these persistent threats. The rise of proxy wars, disinformation campaigns, and hybrid tactics all point to a future where intelligence gathering and analysis will become even more critical. Sticking with espionage in the United Kingdom, our next story deals with two men accused of spying for China. This story highlights Beijing's ongoing efforts to infiltrate Western governments and gather sensitive intelligence. The article we'll be breaking down comes from the BBC and is entitled "Two Men Deny Spying for China" and offers a rare glimpse into how espionage plays out in modern democratic states. The accused are Christopher Berry, a 32-year-old from Oxfordshire, and Christopher Cash, 29, a former parliamentarian researcher from East London. Both men have pleaded not guilty to charges under the UK's Official Secrets Act, which implies the seriousness of these accusations. Berry and Cash are suspected of engaging in espionage activities and could have jeopardized UK national security. According to the prosecution, these activities took place between December 2021 and February 2023. Cash allegedly had access to high-profile politicians, including a Conservative leadership candidate and a former Foreign Affairs Committee chairperson. From an intelligence perspective, this case is a textbook example of how classic espionage tactics, such as penetration and information gathering, happen from within the political system. By positioning an agent, or someone willing to act on behalf of the foreign state, close to key decision makers, China would have gained access to sensitive political discussions, political debates, and possibly even classified documents. This is also known in spy parlance as a tool of government, an individual who is in a position to make decisions favorable to the foreign government that is running them. This is not the first time the UK has faced accusations of espionage linked to Beijing. In 2020, MI5 issued a warning about Chinese Communist Party's efforts to gain influence within UK Parliament circles. Espionage cases of this nature often take years to surface, with many investigations being conducted quietly behind the scenes. It's worth noting that espionage charges under the Official Secrets Act are rare, making this case particularly significant. If these allegations are true, it's an indication of just how brazen China has become in its intelligence operations against Western democracies. For context, China has been known to employ various methods to collect intelligence from within the West, including cyber espionage, human intelligence, or human assets, and even using private companies to gain access to sensitive information. This case involving Berry and Cash could mark a new escalation using individuals with direct access to political figures. Beijing has dismissed the charges as malicious slander, which is a standard diplomatic playbook for a government accused of espionage. But we have to consider the broader implications. If the charges are proven, it suggests that a direct effort by China to shape UK policy from the inside. From a counterintelligence standpoint, the UK faces a difficult challenge here. This trial, scheduled for this month, is expected to last between 5 and 7 weeks. If the evidence holds up, it could mean a significant diplomatic fallout and tighter security measures within the UK government. Given my experience in intelligence, I see this as a prime example of how foreign interference can go far beyond traditional espionage. It's not just about stealing state secrets, it's about gaining influence over how a nation's leaders think and act. The accusations against Christopher Berry and Christopher Cash could have serious ramifications for the UK's intelligence community. Espionage within the heart of a government undermines national security, erodes trust, and exposes critical vulnerabilities. This case, as it unfolds, will be one to watch closely, and it may reveal new dimensions of Chinese intelligence operations in Western countries. Unfortunately, China isn't the only country trying to steal national security secrets from the UK. In our next story, we look into accusations of a former British soldier concerning the gathering security military information for Iran and escaping from a UK prison. This article, sourced from BBC News, titled "Ex-Soldier Accused of Spying for Iran Gathered Names of Specific Special Forces," reveals shocking allegations of espionage and an audacious prison break. Daniel Khalif, 23, a former British Army soldier, faces serious accusations of spying for Iran. During this trial, the prosecution outlined how Khalif allegedly collected the names of Special Forces personnel, including those of the Elite Special Air Service and Special Boat Service. According to the charges, Khalif took a photo of a list of 15 soldiers and accessed internal military systems to gather sensitive information, which he then shared with the Iranian contacts. The timeline of the events is disturbing. The court heard that as early as April 2019, Khalif had begun reaching out to Iranian contacts offering his services. By August 2020, he had reportedly been in communication with a man saved on his phone as David Smith, detailing military systems that identify personnel. In fact, he told his contact, "I won't leave the military until you tell me to," signaling a long-term espionage operation planned for over 25 years. Espionage cases involving ex-military personnel are not uncommon, but what makes this case stand out is the depth of the information that Khalif was allegedly able to access. The court was told that Khalif was able to take screenshots of classified systems marked secret and even had access to NATO high security level information. He also gathered information from a WhatsApp group known as Brew Room Boys, further expanding his reach into military networks. Khalif's story is more complex than simple espionage. The court heard that he was motivated by a desire to work in military intelligence, and when the Iranian ancestry was seen as an obstacle to higher level security vetting, he decided to run his own intelligence operation. He allegedly saw his Iranian heritage as an advantage, turning to the Islamic Republic of Iran for opportunities to do intelligence work. This is a unique twist in the world of espionage, where personal ambition can sometimes blur the lines between national loyalty and self-interest. Adding another layer to the case is Khalif's dramatic escape from Wandsworth Prison in September 2023. The details of his escape seem like something out of a movie. He allegedly strapped himself to the underside of a food delivery truck to break out of prison. Police later found a makeshift sling under the truck's chassis, and Khalif evaded capture for 3 days before being arrested on a canal towpath in London, carrying cash and supplies. From an intelligence perspective, this case underscores how vulnerable even the most secure systems can be when individuals in the inside are motivated by personal gain or foreign influence. If Khalif's alleged actions are proven, it shows how Iran continues to focus its intelligence operations on infiltrating and gaining insight into Western military capabilities. Iran, like other adversarial states, have long invested in both cyber and human intelligence to expand its reach. And this case is potentially another example of that. What stands out here is the methodical nature of Khalif's activities. Gathering the names of Special Forces personnel is an incredibly specific target, which suggests that Iran may have been interested in compromising or potentially targeting these individuals for further intelligence collection or even disruption operations. While Khalif denies all charges, the evidence presented so far paints a concerning picture. The story is still developing, and the trial is expected to last 6 weeks. Daniel Khalif's actions, if proven, represent a significant breach of national security, both in terms of information gathered and the potential consequences of that information being used by a hostile state like Iran. We change our focus from the UK to Canada in our next story. Let's take a closer look at a recent revelation about China's foreign interference operations in Canada. Our focus is on the 2021 intelligence analysis that stalled with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's National Security Advisor. Let's break down how this happened and what it means for Canadian intelligence. This involves a 2021 report produced by the Privy Council Office and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service on China's foreign interference in Canada. This report, based on over 100 intelligence reports, aimed to provide critical insights into China's influence tactics in Canada. However, despite its importance, the report didn't reach Prime Minister Trudeau or his cabinet for months. Instead, it remained with Trudeau's National Security Advisor at the time, Jody Thomas. This delay is a significant intelligence oversight, especially considering the severity of the issue. The report detailed China's sophistication and persistent efforts to undermine Canadian democracy through disinformation campaign, leveraging elected officials, and intimidating businesses. The question now is, how does such an essential intelligence product get stuck in bureaucratic limbo? The Hogue Commission, which is investigating this and other foreign interference matters, has been trying to understand why this report was held back. Former intelligence official Martin Green, who was involved in the report's creation, testified that he repeatedly raised the issue with Jody Thomas in early 2022. Unfortunately, it seems that competing national security concerns, like Russia's impending invasion of Ukraine and the Freedom Convoy protest, shifted the focus away from this crucial intelligence. This incident highlights ongoing challenges in getting intelligence to the right decision makers. The Privy Council Office is the nerve center of Canadian government operations, and its Intelligence Assessment Secretariat is responsible for ensuring that vital intelligence reaches the Prime Minister and senior officials. However, delays like this aren't unique to this report. In fact, the Commission has heard multiple accounts of intelligence gathering getting bogged down in bureaucracy. The report's findings align with what we've seen in other countries dealing with Chinese interference. China uses a combination of proxies, covert networks, and influence operations to shape public opinion surrounding elected officials and it advanced its geopolitical goals. Canada's vulnerability to these activities is a growing concern, especially as Beijing continues to deny any wrongdoing despite mounting evidence. Martin Green, the former senior intelligence official, expressed his frustration, noting that while he pushed for the report to be shared widely, it never made it to the Prime Minister or the cabinet ministers. He described feeling ill when the report was leaked to global news, highlighting just how problematic it is when sensitive intelligence becomes public. Another expert, Lisa Duchar, a PCO official, testified that such delays are not uncommon. Reports can be held up or remain unfinished due to resourcing issues or being overtaken by events such as seen here. This raises broader concerns about how Canada handles intelligence and ensures timely decision-making on national security threats. The issue of intelligence bottlenecks is more than just a bureaucratic failure. It's a matter of national security. As Justice Marie-Josée Ho pointed out, there are often misunderstandings about roles within the intelligence community and differing opinions between intelligence professionals and elected officials. Fear of disclosing sensitive information further complicates the flow of intelligence to decision makers. As the Ho Commission continues its inquiry, there's hope that it will shed light on how Canada can improve its intelligence sharing processes. With foreign interference from nations like China on the rise, it's crucial that we address these challenges to protect our democracy, and excuses like bureaucracy can't be used to keep Canada and Canadians safe from national security threats. For our next story, we're staying in Canada and looking at two brothers convicted of violating U.S. sanctions on Iran. They were allowed to adopt new identities on Ontario, Canada, despite their criminal records. We'll unpack the complex story and examine how it affects Canadian national security and foreign policy. The article covers the cases of Amin and Arash Yousafzai, who were sentenced in the U.S. for exporting sensitive equipment to Iran, circumventing sanctions. After returning to Ontario, they changed their names and resumed normal lives. From an intelligence perspective, the ability of convicted criminals to legally change their names while under parole raises serious concerns, especially considering one of them was not a Canadian citizen. This situation underscores the vulnerabilities within our national identity system and the broader implications for enforcing sanctions designed to contain foreign threats. Canada's proximity to the U.S. makes it a prime target for those looking to evade sanctions. This case is a stark example of how front companies and false identities can be leveraged to dodge international restrictions. This case also highlights the lack of coordination between the three levels of government: federal, provincial, and municipal. The fact that these two individuals could apply for and acquire new identities at the provincial level while still being on parole for providing sensitive information and sensitive equipment to Iran clearly demonstrates the lack of coordination between federal and provincial institutions. I have discussed this very issue regarding student and temporary visas, where provinces are either unaware or incapable of dealing with the identified and potential national security threats to Canada. To put this in context, Iran has long relied on complex international networks to circumvent sanctions, which are meant to restrict its nuclear ambitions and military capabilities. These sanctions are a key part of Western efforts to prevent the Islamic Republic from acquiring weapons of mass destruction or supporting terror groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Similar cases of sanction evasion have emerged globally, but this one is particularly troubling for Canada, where enforcement of these sanctions is seen as weaker compared to the United States. The broader issue here is how foreign actors use legitimate financial and legal frameworks to exploit gaps in our security systems, undermining Canadian efforts to control foreign influence. The Yousafzai brothers case is a revealing glimpse into the complexities of sanctions enforcement and the need for a higher level of vigilance when it comes to national security threats and how the provinces and municipalities deal with these issues. Looking ahead, it's clear that Canada will need to tighten its protocols around identity changes, immigration, and sanctions enforcement to prevent similar cases in the future. The stories surrounding the inquiry into foreign interference just keep coming this week, and as such, I'm going to keep providing insights and analysis to them. This week, there was a significant news involving a former chief of Canada's Public Safety Minister, Zita Astravas, and this testimony that she provided at the Commission. The article highlights allegations that Astravas, a former chief of staff to the Public Safety Minister, delayed the approval of a spy service warrant in early 2021 due to its potential impact on the Trudeau government. Astravas has categorically denied these claims in her recent testimony. The case centers on the Canadian Security Intelligence Services warrant application, which was delayed by 54 days, well beyond its typical 4 to 10 days turnaround. This delay raised concerns with CSIS, the Deputy Director Michel Tessier expressing frustration. The inquiry is now investigating whether Astravas, acting on behalf of the Trudeau government, purposely slowed down the process. From an intelligence perspective, This situation raises serious concerns about the interplay between government operations and national security priorities. Intelligence services, such as CSIS, rely on timely approval of warrants to conduct surveillance critical to safeguarding national security. Delays like this can jeopardize active investigations and may allow foreign interference to persist unchecked. This issue is part of a broader inquiry into the federal agency's mandate into foreign interference. The inquiry is examining whether political considerations have played a role in stalling intelligence operations. Historically, we've seen similar tensions between intelligence services and government bodies, where political interests can sometimes conflict with national security imperatives. In this case, the CSIS warrant could have provided essential information to counter foreign intelligence and foreign interference. The 54-day delay likely hampered efforts to track individuals tied to foreign influence operations, raising questions about how federal decision-makers prioritize intelligence matters. It also brings into questions whether political parties are more concerned about saving face for their members than they are about dealing with national security issues like foreign interference. During the inquiry, Astras denied slowing down the process, calling the allegations categorically false. She emphasized that the warrant was never marked as urgent. However, Gib Van Ert, the lawyer for the Conservative MP Michael Chong, suggested that Astras might have intentionally delayed the process due to its potential political ramifications. What's also telling in the testimony is that Bill Blair, who served as a public minister at the time, had said that he only became aware of the warrant application when he signed for it, further indicating that the bureaucratic process must have been mishandled at multiple levels. This case underscores the delicate balance between maintaining government oversight and ensuring intelligence operations proceed without unnecessary delays. Foreign interference is a persistent threat, and when intelligence agencies like CSIS are hindered in their work, it can have long-lasting national security implications. This situation brings to light the importance of robust collaboration between intelligence agencies and government officials. Delays like the one discussed here impact critical surveillance efforts, and the ongoing inquiry will hopefully shed more light on the mechanics behind such decisions. Further testimony from the Foreign Interference Commission came from the current National Security and Intelligence Advisor, where she dismissed concerns that Canadian parliamentarians are acting as traitors. Let's unpack this story and explore its broader implications for intelligence and foreign interference. In testimony before the Haut Commission on Foreign Interference, Nathalie Drouin, the Prime Minister's National Security and Intelligence Advisor, made it clear that she had not seen any evidence suggesting that federal politicians are traitors or knowingly collaborating with foreign governments. This statement comes in response to a national security report suggesting that certain MPs might be involved either wittingly or semi-wittingly in foreign interference schemes. Drouin emphasized that while she has seen inappropriate behavior and questionable judgment by some MPs, none of this rises to the level of espionage, sabotage, or threats to Canadian security. This revelation seeks to calm the growing concerns sparked by a National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, or NSICOP report, which has implied that some MPs might be working with foreign actors. This statement is another example of the lack of understanding in national security issues and how they are handled at the highest levels of the Canadian government. If the National Security and Intelligence Advisor can't wrap her head around the idea that foreign interference and how those participating in this type of activity pose a threat to Canadian sovereignty and national security, it speaks volumes to why this individual should not have been appointed to this position. It is true that the criminal code term traitor relates to times of war or provision of scientific or military information. It does not excuse the NSIA from informal understanding of the term that means a person who is not loyal to their country or someone who betrays their country by supporting an enemy. This definition is exactly what foreign interference is dealing with when hostile enemy states are colluding with MPs to ensure their political ambitions are accepted and acted upon by the Canadian government. The statement by the NSIA raises the issue of how we define and handle foreign interference within our political system. While no concrete evidence of treason has been presented, the mere suggestion of MPs being involved in foreign influence efforts can erode public trust in governmental institutions, which is the key goal of hostile foreign actors. The NSICOP report from June 2023 noted that some federal politicians could be witting or semi-witting participants in foreign interference schemes. However, the committee refrained from naming specific individuals or parties, citing national security concerns. Intelligence agencies may possess sensitive information regarding these activities, but disclosing such details publicly or in court risks exposing classified sources and methods, a long-standing issue in the field of intelligence. This is reminiscent of the tensions between intelligence operations and the legal system. While intelligence might provide a high degree of confidence, it doesn't always meet the evidentiary standards required for criminal prosecution. Canada has faced challenges in balancing the need to protect the political system from foreign interference while also safeguarding classified information and the integrity of its intelligence sources. Truan's testimony is crucial, as it directly addresses the suspicion cast on parliamentarians by earlier NCCOP report. Her comments downplay the notion of traitorous behavior, stating instead that she has only seen inappropriate behaviors or a lack of judgment among MPs. Similarly, Jody Thomas, Truan's predecessor, downplayed the significance of a stalled report on China's foreign interference activities, describing it as useful but not containing any new conclusions. This situation highlights the delicate role intelligence plays in informing political decision-making. While foreign interference is a legitimate concern, suggesting that MPs are actively betraying the country without concrete evidence risks politicizing intelligence. Hostile foreign powers often aim to undermine democracies by creating divisions and distrust, and this is a textbook example of how this can manipulate perceptions to achieve their goal. Unfortunately, the previous and current national security and intelligence advisors have simply added to the confusion by demonstrating a lack of understanding or concern in regard to the very real danger of foreign interference to Canadian democracy. Just so the audience doesn't think that I'm picking on Canada and our foreign interference issues, I'm turning my attention to Ireland for my last story. In a surprising turn of events, several Irish politicians have felt the need to publicly declare that they are not spies, following allegation of Russian interference in Ireland's parliament. The recent Sunday Times report suggested that a member of the Irish parliament, codenamed Cobalt, has been recruited as a Russian asset and is being monitored by Irish security services. In response to the mounting rumors, a number of senators in Ireland's lower house stood to publicly state that they were not the politician in question. Leading the charge was Senator Timmy Dooley, who stressed the importance of clearing any potential suspicion from the House, declaring, "I am not such a person." His fellow senators followed suit, underscoring the seriousness of the claims. The backdrop of this controversy is Ireland's rising concern over foreign interference, particularly from Russia. In light of the ongoing war in Ukraine, Russian espionage efforts have ramped up across Europe, and Ireland is not immune. Ireland's security services are actively monitoring these activities, though details about the alleged spy within the upper house remain scarce. The allegations about Cobalt have thrust Ireland's national security into the spotlight, with experts warning that politicians, journalists, academics, and business leaders could all be vulnerable to Russia's influence. Kara Giles from the Conflict Studies Russian Center pointed out that Russia targets individuals in positions of influence, seeking to manipulate public discourse and decision-making in subtle yet powerful ways. According to Giles, even smaller nations like Ireland are not exempt from these espionage efforts, particularly given Russia's strategic interest in disrupting European unity. One notable testimony came from Peter Tobin, the leader of an Irish political party, who revealed that he was once approached by a consultancy firm in 2017 offering to set up a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. At the time, Tobin was a front bench TD for Sinn Féin and had been invited to an economic forum in Crimea. He declined the offer, citing concerns over Russia's anti-democratic behavior, and reported the incident to his party's headquarters. This incident further highlights how Russia uses economic and political forums to gain influence over individuals in key positions. With the possibility of having direct access to Putin, Russia was clearly attempting to influence Tobin in a significant way, which shows the depth of their interference strategies. This week's developments are a reminder that even countries with smaller populations like Ireland are targets for foreign interference, particularly from adversarial powers like Russia. As the inquiry continues, it will be crucial to see how Ireland's security services respond to these threats and what measures are put in place to safeguard against future espionage attempts. Well, I feel like I've adequately covered this week's foreign interference issues, from Ireland to the UK to Canada. This shows that hostile states like China, Iran, and Russia are continually challenging the democratic institutions of our countries for their goals. And these politicians and government appointees who refuse to see the obvious should be questioned as to whether their complacency is a true reflection of their compromised position. With that thought in mind, I'd like to wish my Canadian listeners a happy and enjoyable Thanksgiving weekend. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I'd like to thank each and every one of my listeners for their support and encouragement. Until next week, stay curious, Stay informed and stay safe.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. Delivering expert analysis on the world's most pressing intelligence issues takes effort and dedication. But the goal is to leave you more informed, more aware, and ready for what's next. If you enjoyed today's episode and want more top-tier intelligence insights, your support means everything. Whether it's a one-time contribution or ongoing backing, head over to buymecoffee.com/kitten or visit us on Buzzsprout to help keep these deep dives and exclusive perspectives coming. Before signing off, don't forget to like, comment, and share this podcast with your network. Every bit of engagement helps expand the community and keep more people informed, just like you. Make sure you're subscribed on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, or ask your smart speaker to play Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. Neil Bisson will be back next week with more critical insights you won't want to miss.